Obviously, a little bit of a break here after Penn State, a game that was nice to on a lot of fronts to get kind of a losing streak snapped and get Io back to find a positive flow. But I thought our grit, our toughness won us that game. And Andres Felice, DeMonte Williams, Kofi was really big in the stretch there with some defensive rebounding. Thought all of that really played into what turned out to be a win against top 10 team on the road. So now it's a couple days off. I think it came at a pretty good time. It was great for Io. Not only was he a little bit sore, he found out how quickly you get out of shape. He was pretty tired at the end of that game. So a couple days off and continued recovery for him, and then it was back to work on Friday. So great timing for me. I had the flu. I've been in bed for about 3 days. So it was I guess if you're going to get that nasty bug, it was now the time to do it. So today's the first day I've felt amongst the living again. So, and now we get a Nebraska team who is Fred's doing an unbelievable job with. This is a team that's better than their record. They're one of the elite offensive teams in the Big Ten. They do it not with size, not with pounding you in the paint, and they're very capable of that. But with tempo, they're extremely handsy on the defensive side. They get a lot of steals. And this is probably the premier cutting team in our conference. They do a great job of cutting. Cheatham, Thorbison, all of those guys are elite. And then they've got a point guard who is a very, very gifted passer and makes everybody better. So this is a team that can really shoot it, and they've had moments against everybody where they're you just almost in awe of how easily they score the ball from three at times. So we'll have to be on our P's and Q's, and transition defense will be a big part of this, and we were great at Penn State with that. We've got to continue that.
Who ran the practices while you were sick?
Me.
Brad, Trent's obviously not shooting it all that well here recently, but when he is, what's that mean to your team, and just how has he handled shooting slumps in the past, and how is he doing it now?
Yeah, I mean, he's he got going the other night, and Trent makes the hard ones, and he misses kind of the some of the easier ones sometimes. So we want him to take some hard ones sometimes to get going, but I don't worry about Trent. Trent's he's got a shooter's mentality. He's got the mentality. He misses 10, he's going to make the next 10, and I love that about him. He's playing the exact right way. He was tremendous the other night on both ends of the court. And when he does get going, there's a completely different element, especially in transition that we have. And I mean, that was a big part of the game the other night at Penn State was our easy baskets. We missed that at Rutgers with Io, getting 8 to 10 points. Dre got a couple baskets. Most of those come because of Trent's speed and then Trent's ability to pitch ahead. And all that because he can shoot and he can get going. So even though he's not making them all the time, he gets going and impacts the game.
You talked about defensively what he does. What does he do so well to bother guys like Miles the other night?
Yeah, he's speed. He's very, very hard to get knocked off. Again, I mean, you're talking Miles Dredd, 220 pounds, 6'4", 6'5". And Trent can beat you to spots. His ability to recover is extremely quick, and then he's got a great knack for not getting screened. He gets over the top of a lot of screens, so he's there. He's up under you, and it can be he can be a pest, and his quickness and speed plays to his advantage.
Coach, how has Io responded after the game? He said he still only felt 70, 80%. Do you feel like he's getting closer?
If that's the case, I can't wait to see 100. No, I think the biggest challenge is he realized that you take 3, 4, 5 days off, how quick your conditioning goes, and he told me the next day. He said, he goes, it wasn't that I was sore. He goes, it was that I was tired, and I told him about the 6-7 minute mark. I was going to try to get him a minute break, and my staff about strangled me when I brought it up, but. I was just trying to get him a minute. So down the stretch, he had everything he needed, but he said he was tired, and now just getting back into the flow, it's a quick recovery for him.
Right after the Maryland game, you said maybe you would reconsider some of the thoughts of playing someone with 2 fouls in the first half, and we've seen a little bit of a different look the last few games. What went into that decision, and what were the conversations like with your staff? Yeah,
just trying to figure out how to win. I think we've discussed a lot of things in terms of making sure that momentum of a game, flow of a game. I think that we're trying to figure out how to continually be better at the end of halves and 2-for-1s. I think there's a lot of things we continually talk about from an analytics standpoint to maximize winning, and part of that is guys with 2 fouls and knowing. We may have to play him. And, Kofi picks up 2 really early in that game, and Georgie has to play extended minutes at the 5, and yet we threw him back out there for a couple minutes. And, it's all about making sure you've got, a guy who's intelligent, momentum's going your way. I felt pretty good because we were in a place where we were leading and didn't feel like we had to really throw him back out. But there's a lot that goes into that.
You guys held Lamar Stevens relatively in check on Tuesday, and a lot of that credit goes to DeMonte Williams for drawing that assignment. What does DeMonte do defensively where he might be facing a 3 or 4 inch height disadvantage, but he still is able to compensate somehow against these 3s or larger forwards like Lamar Stevens?
Well, he's got great lower body strength. People don't realize how strong DeMonte is. He's very, very strong. So a lot of times you're not just going to overpower him. Secondly, he's got great length. So he plays bigger than his size. And then I think the other thing is he's smart. He's a great anticipator. He understands the scouting report. He knows when opportunities are coming, what plays are coming. Then it's we call it doing your job early. He anticipates that. He does his job early, and then he's in a position to then rely on teammates for help if needed in certain areas. But all those things play into what makes DeMonte really good. But IQ, feel, understanding scouting report, and then all the physical tools allow him to be a pretty good defender at multiple positions.
Seemed like when Kobe was on the floor against Penn State, a lot of one shot and out for them, and they only had 5 second chance points, then also 7 offensive rebounds for him against Rutgers. Has he found another gear on the glass, and if so, what has kind of triggered that?
Well, we challenged him for one. I mean, he had a stretch where he was, 8 points, 5.5, 6 rebounds, and he wasn't giving a second effort. And I don't know, maybe that was a little bit of fatigue. Maybe that was me playing him too many minutes. But we've really challenged that, and his mindset has been a little different. And again, on the defensive side, there can be some selfishness from the standpoint, you want every rebound. You can, and we're trying to get him to understand that. Just go get every rebound. And we told him late in that game, every miss has got to be yours. And to his credit, he was dialed in, he was focused, and he made those plays.
You kept Dre in the starting lineup at Penn State, even with Io back. Was to go with the 3 guards again, just what kind of triggered that for you, and did you like it, again after kind of a couple months without going that way?
Yeah, I think from a comfort standpoint, we know exactly what we're getting there, and it wasn't playing a little smaller. Georgie felt really good coming off the bench, we felt like Dre had been in the starting lineup. He was the logical guy to go back there. We felt really comfortable with what we were going to get there. It was a good matchup, and then it's when you put 3 guards in the lineup, I think you can cause some stress on the other team in terms of, we didn't always have Trent at the point. We had Dre at the point. We didn't always have Dre at the point. We had Io at the point, and we put different guys in ball screen actions, and some of that was based on matchups.
Brad, bringing Georgie off the bench and playing more of that 5 role, how has that impacted him, and how has that impacted the rest of your team?
I think it's still to be determined. I think that he's comfortable, very comfortable there. People do have to guard him there. He missed some chippies that he was frustrated with, but I thought he was much better defensively in terms of positioning. He had 7 rebounds. That's wasn't where he had to go from the perimeter to the interior to rebound. He was around the basket. He was closer. Because of his defensive assignment, and he guarded Stevens, he guarded Watkins, he guarded Harar, but we'll see how that progresses. I think it's a little early, but I think he's very comfortable there. I think he knows he's going to play some 4, and we've got to be able to try to, and we do every day in practice, keep working with him there.
Is there any advantage to playing Nebraska the first time now, this late in the season, considering new coach, 99% new roster? Maybe they're more of what they are now than if you would have played them, early January or even December.
I don't know, Scott. I don't think about it like that. I look at it just really simple. That this is the basketball team that's coming in, and who they are right now in this moment, and. It is maybe a little bit unique that we're seeing the team for the first time, but this team's playing good. I mean, this team, Michigan State had a lead at home against Michigan State in the second half, and took Wisconsin down to the wire, and really the only game that had Michigan hanging right there with Michigan, and really kind of the only game that's got away from them a little bit was Penn State, but they had a chance to win at Maryland. Right after Maryland played us, and it ends up 2, 3, 4 point games. So this is a good basketball team, and like I said, much better than their record.
It's the first time in years that at this point in the season, Illini fans are thinking about seeding and where they might end up in the Big Ten tournament. And you always say you take it one game at a time and have no idea. So you have no idea how the Big Ten is coming about now, how it's going to wind up, what you need to do to win a championship.
What's the date of the last game? March 8th. So March 9th, I'll look at the schedule or the standings, and we'll see where we're at. We'll find out if we play Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And I don't know. I told Lauren yesterday on the radio, I get ticked off every time somebody wants to talk to me about it. I don't look at them. I don't believe in them. They're great for all of you guys. Derek wants to talk to me all the time about league standings and this and that, and I just look at my phone and turn a deaf ear. But it's exciting to be in the talk, and I get all of that. For me to waste my energy on that when it's literally going to change every day, because I think yesterday Baylor got beat. Gonzaga got beat, San Diego State got beat, probably somebody else, and that won't be the last time, I'm sure. So it's all going to flip, it's all going to change, and what happened on February 23rd will be different than what is going to be the reality. So it's exciting to be in it's exciting to be in the talk, and I'm more worried about us continuing to play well and get better, and that's all we can ask for.
Brad, we talk a lot about DeMonte's defense, but does his versatility unlock your ability or your comfort level to go with that 3-guard lineup, knowing that he can do that, guard the 4?
Yeah, a little bit. There's no question. And I tell you the thing that excites me about DeMonte there some is ability to pass. People haven't talked about what a big-time pass he made to Io on a back cut. And he threw that off a dribble with a defender on him. And that's an instinct play. That's a read play. That's a connection between those two. And that pass doesn't happen with anybody else there, more than likely, at the 4 spot in that matchup. So it's opened up things a great deal for us. He's making threes. He didn't score the other night. He didn't shoot because he didn't have to. But it's something he's playing with a ton of confidence, and I have a lot of confidence in him.
Where's Georgie from a confidence standpoint, and is it something you're concerned about? Because it seemed like at the beginning of the year, he was one of the first people that said, well, this is going to be a seamless transition. I've always played the 4. And then when it wasn't, it seemed like that was a concern, maybe of yours, that we need to make sure that he understands how good of a player he actually is and remind him constantly.
Well, I think we've asked him to go from a guy who was a high 50s, low 60% field goal shooter because of where he scored, and we've asked him to do some other things, and that I don't want to say it was seamless. It wasn't, but it takes a bit of change and a different discipline, maybe. I don't think the one thing that Georgie ever lacks from is confidence. I think he works so hard. I think he's like Io. I think he works so hard that he expects every shot to go in. I think that the challenge has been, more probably internally with us in terms of, where are we getting him shots? How we going to go about doing that? But I don't think it's a lack of confidence. I think Georgie's an extremely self-confident person, maybe one of the most on our team.
This may mean like I'm stating the obvious, but it appears that this team is an entirely different one with Io in that lineup and on the court, because Tuesday night they played with so much more resolve and everything with him there rather than when they did without him Saturday.
I don't think it had anything to do. You stated the obvious. He's a really good player. He's one of the best players in our league, and anybody would be remiss and be at a loss, I guess, if they didn't have a guy like that. But I think the one thing that Io is so good at we look at all of his physical skills. Io doesn't make very many mistakes, and we put guys on the court that don't make mistakes, and that was one of the biggest. Our transition defense the other night became 100 times better because Io was in the game, and those are the little things, the mental pieces that for long periods of time you need. And he was fabulous, and he does so much. I think that there's a mental component to him that exudes through our other players. There's a confidence of seeing and knowing that he's on the floor, and so it was one of those deals. We didn't have him. We were right there, and yet we didn't do enough things right to deserve to win that game.
When you've been able to hold teams down from 3, is it as simple as looking at a scouting report and handing that assignment to Trent or Io, or do you do something different schematically, rotations-wise?
Combination of both.
Yeah.
Combination of both. We've got a different scheme for most every game, based on their opponent, based on personnel, based on strengths, weaknesses. And a lot of that comes from simply, their screening actions to their ball screen actions to, strengths and weaknesses, and, how many mid-range pull-ups they shoot, or what their percentage is finishing at the rim. So there's a lot more that goes into it than Trent, you got him. There's a lot of, I go back to Michigan, the first time we played him here, at that point Xavier Simpson had taken, 2 mid-range pull-ups. We weren't going to give him, we were going to force him. We just stuck Kofi under the rim and said, come challenge us, and so there's a lot that goes into, to that, and, and then how you help off of guys and so on and so forth. So, but we scheme pretty much every game.